Welcome to Sexpertease. I'm your host and favorite sexpert, the Erica Rivera. Tonight, we are talking about desire, not as something you either have or don't have, but as a skill that you can learn, support, and cultivate over time. Many people think of desire as something that you either have or don't have. When it's present, things feel easy, and when it's absent, people often assume something is wrong. This all or nothing framing creates unnecessary pressure. It treats desire like a personality trait instead of a dynamic experience. In reality, desire is shaped over time. Desire is influenced by attention, environment, as well as emotional state. It responds to how we live, not just who we are. When these conditions change, your desire is going to change too. This doesn't mean desire is failing. It means it's responsive. Understanding this shifts us out of self-blame. So in this final episode of this series, we'll explore desire as a skill rather than a mystery. We'll talk about how wanting can be cultivated gently and intentionally. This isn't about forcing arousal or fixing yourself. It's about learning how desire works for you. Skill building invites patience instead of urgency. There's a strong cultural belief that desire should just come naturally. People are taught that if attraction is real, wanting will just appear. When desire requires effort or intention, it's often seen as a problem. And this belief sets people up for disappointment. It frames effort as failure. Doesn't make any sense. So in reality, many meaningful parts of life require attention and care. Relationships, creativity, and emotional intimacy all involve practice. Desire is no different. Expecting it to stay automatic forever ignores how bodies and lives change. This expectation creates passivity rather than engagement. When people wait for desire to arrive on its own, they often wait indefinitely. This can lead to frustration or resignation. Reframing desire as something you can nurture brings agency back. Effort becomes an act of care rather than proof of deficiency. Desire responds truly to involvement. Now, desire is also often confused with drive. Drive refers to biological urges that are influenced by hormones and physical states. Desire includes meaning, context, and attention. Someone can have physical drive without feeling any desire. Likewise, desire can exist without strong physical urgency. So when people rely on drive alone, desire then feels inconsistent. Drive fluctuates based on sleep, stress, health. Desire depends on engagement and interpretation. So confusing the two leads to misunderstanding. It can make people think desire is gone when drive is simply low. So understanding the difference allows for more flexibility. Desire can be cultivated even when drive is quiet. It responds to curiosity, imagination, connection. This reframing reduces pressure to feel a certain way physically. So wanting becomes more accessible when meaning is involved. Now, desire doesn't appear in a vacuum. It responds to both internal and external conditions. So emotional safety, privacy, pacing, and context all matter. When conditions support regulation, desire is more likely to emerge. When they don't, that's when desire will often stay quiet. Many people try to generate desire through intention alone. They tell themselves they should want sex more or try harder. But desire doesn't respond to commands. It responds to environment. So small changes in conditions can have a larger impact than willpower. Viewing desire as emergent rather than forced, that's going to change the approach entirely. So instead of asking how to create desire, you ask what supports it. This invites experimentation rather than pressure. Desire becomes something that unfolds. Conditions matter much more than determination. Attention plays a powerful role in desire. Where attention goes, sensation often follows. Distraction, multitasking, and mental overload pull attraction away from the body. I'm sure many of you watching this can relate to that. When attraction is fragmented, desire struggles to form. So presence creates possibility. Many people try to engage intimately while they're still mentally elsewhere. They carry work stress, responsibilities, or self-monitoring into moments of connection. So this splits attraction, it splits attention and reduces responsiveness. Desire needs space to be noticed, and attention provides that space. Cultivating attention does not mean forcing focus. It means gently returning awareness to sensation and experience. Even brief moments of presence can support wanting. Attention it's a skill that improves with practice. Desire often follows where attention leads. So let's talk about curiosity. I talk about curiosity a lot. It's probably the second most common thing besides communication that I talk about quite often. And curiosity is one of the most reliable pathways back to desire. So unlike pressure, curiosity doesn't demand a result. It invites exploration without knowing where it's going to lead. So this lowers the nervous system threat, and when curiosity is present, the body feels less evaluated. Desire responds more easily in that state. So practicing curiosity means paying attention to sensation instead of the outcome. It can sound like asking, what am I noticing right now? Rather than, is this working? So curiosity keeps attention in the present moment. It allows desire to unfold rather than perform. So this shift alone can change the experience of intimacy. Curiosity also makes room for change. Desire does not have to look the same every time to be valid. When curiosity replaces expectation, that's when flexibility increases. So the body feels like it has permission to respond honestly. So desire grows when it's when it's allowed to surprise you. Quick sip. I know I rarely do this, but I feel a tickle in my throat. All right. Better. Let's talk about routine. So, routine often will develop unintentionally over time. So, it prioritizes efficiency and predictability. While routine can feel safe, it can also dull attraction, or attention is what I mean. Attention. I keep thinking about attraction, but it can dull attention. Routine can dull attention. When intimacy becomes automatic, desire may fade into the background. So the body essentially stops noticing because nothing feels new. Ritual, however, is different from routine. Ritual involves intention, presence, and meaning. So it signals to the nervous system that something matters. Small shifts in timing, environment, or pacing can transform routine into ritual. These shifts invite awareness back into the experience. So ritual does not require like grand gestures. It can be as simple as slowing down or setting an intentional tone. Like it's really a lot simpler than we think. So when meaning is restored, when there is meaning to what you're doing, desire will often follow. Ritual helps the body re-engage, whereas routine doesn't necessarily do that. Desire responds to intention more than repetition. So anticipation is a big one. All right. Anticipation plays a powerful role when it comes to cultivating desire. Some of you are probably nodding right now. Anticipation. Desire often begins before contact through imagination and, of course, attention. So fantasy, memory, and mental rehearsal all contribute. These elements engage the nervous system in advance. Wanting can start long before anything physical happens. So anticipation works best when it is playful rather than pressured. It invites curiosity without demanding fulfillment. So when anticipation becomes expectation, that's when pressure returns. The nervous system tightens instead of opening. Desire responds better to open-ended anticipation. So, allowing anticipation without attachment builds flexibility. It keeps desire alive without forcing it into a specific outcome. Anticipation can exist even if intimacy doesn't immediately follow. So this keeps desire separate from obligation. Wanting becomes something that you end up exploring, not something that you owe. Now, desire also requires a sense of choice. When intimacy feels mandatory, arousal often shuts down. Obligation activates stress responses rather than openness. Obligation really doesn't help with openness. The body needs to know that it can say no in order to feel safe to say yes. So agency is foundational to wanting. Choice also includes the freedom to change your mind. Desire may ebb and flow even within a single experience. Respecting that movement builds trust with the body. When choice is honored, desire feels safer to express. So agency allows honesty. Cultivating desire means protecting choice at every stage. So this applies internally as well as relationally. Giving yourself permission to opt in rather than comply changes the experience. Desire grows where autonomy is respected. So agency is really what keeps desire alive. So what do we do when you are feeling disconnected? When desire has been pressured or overridden, it often needs repair. And this is a hard part, because I've had clients during my one-on-one consultations where they've reached this point where they have felt pressured in their relationship, and often they're in this repair stage. So that disconnect is what teaches them and teaches their nervous system to protect itself. So jumping back into intensity can increase resistance. Slowing down is usually the more effective method of repair rather than pushing forward. So repair really begins with safety. And we talked about that a little bit during last week's episode. Repair involves rebuilding trust with the body. This means listening to signals rather than completely dismissing them. It may require lowering expectations temporarily. Gentle engagement helps restore confidence. Desire returns more easily when it's not being rushed. So going slower, that doesn't have to mean going backward. That's not what I'm saying at all. It means allowing the nervous system to recalibrate. Repair creates a stronger foundation for future wanting. So desire ends up becoming more resilient when trust is restored. And patience is part of that. Patience is part of the skill. Desire, it'll become more accessible to you when you end up understanding your own patterns. Many people rely on generalized advice rather than personal observation. But desire is highly individual and context specific. So what supports wanting for one person may not work for another. Learning your own patterns requires attention rather than judgment. And we tend to judge ourselves a lot. Now, patterns end up showing up over time, not in isolated moments. So noticing when desire feels easier, when it feels harder, or neutral even, that's going to provide you with really useful information. Stress levels, emotional connection, environment, all of these things play a role. So these patterns they're not fixed traits. They're responses. So they're responsive signals that shift with conditions. Approaching patterns with curiosity changes the experience. All right, so here I go with curiosity again. Instead of asking what's wrong, ask what is happening. So don't ask what is wrong, ask what is happening. This keeps the nervous system out of threat mode. Understanding patterns builds that self-trust that you need for desire to respond. And desire responds when it feels understood. So how do we put this into practice? Practicing desire does not mean manufacturing arousal. It just means creating low stakes opportunities for connection. That's all it is. This could include touch. It could include presence. It could simply include a conversation without an expected outcome. Low pressure is what allows the nervous system to stay open. That way, desire has space to appear naturally. Forcing desire often backfires. It often backfires, and I can't even tell you how many people choose this type of repair or this path of forcing desire because they think it's wrong that desire doesn't come to them immediately. But I'm telling you, it will backfire. When people push themselves to feel something, attention turns into performance. And I mean, your partner can probably tell. So sensation ends up being replaced by self-monitoring. I mean, think about how much anxiety you feel once you're performing and monitoring yourself. The body ends up responding by shutting down even further. So practice works best when curiosity replaces demand. So gentle experimentation supports learning. Trying small shifts without expectation is what's going to build confidence. Desire may appear, it may fade, it may change shape. All of those responses are valid. So practicing without force is what's going to keep desire honest. So let's talk about you who are in long-term relationships. Desire changes in long-term relationships. Familiarity, sorry, you know what I'm thinking. I just have a hard time pronouncing it. But that stress and shared routines all influence wanting, right? So expecting desire to remain spontaneous over time, especially if you're in a long-term relationship, eventually that's going to create frustration if that is the expectation. So long-term desire often requires intention rather than novelty alone. And this shift is totally normal. In long-term partnerships, desire often moves from automatic to cultivated. This does not mean that something is missing. It means desire responds to different cues. Intentional connection, curiosity, as I mentioned before, and even ritual become more important. Desire becomes something that you basically tend to rather than wait for. Does that make sense? So letting go of urgency helps long-term desire to survive. Pressure to recreate early intensity, something that you have experienced before, can actually shut desire down. So allowing desire to evolve creates sustainability. Long-term wanting thrives when it is supported instead of demanded. Now, let's talk about ongoing, right? Whether you're single, married, doesn't matter. Seeing desire as a skill is what's going to reframe those setbacks. Skills, they fluctuate, just like any other skill, right? It fluctuates depending on your energy, context, practice. Low desire periods does not mean that you have failed at anything. It's not a failure. It's part of the learning process. And compassion is what's going to support skill development. Skill building requires patience and repetition. Desire responds to consistent, gentle attention over time. There's no final achievement point. There's not a final boss, okay? Desire just evolves. It continues to evolve as circumstances change. So maintenance matters much more than mastery. Approaching desire as a skill reduces self-criticism. It allows for experimentation and repair, as I mentioned before, and this mindset just keeps the nervous system regulated. Desire becomes something you work with instead of judging. Growth ends up happening gradually. All right. Oh, we're at the end already. I feel like that went by quicker than usual. Maybe not. I don't know. But I will say this. This series has definitely explored desire from multiple angles. So if you watched all 4 episodes, thank you so much. We have talked about pressure, timing, nervous system responses, and skill building. So together, these pieces form a more complete picture of wanting. Desire is not random, it's not broken, it is responsive, and it is learnable. It is learnable. Integration happens through reflection rather than effort. So noticing how these themes, how they show up in your life is enough. That is literally enough. So you don't need to apply everything at once. All right. You don't have to apply everything I said at one time. Just start noticing how what I said shows up in your life. Small insights, they accumulate over time. So understanding creates relief. As we close this series, the invitation is gentleness. That's my invitation. Gentleness. Desire does not need to be forced to exist. When supported, it finds its way back. Just support it, it'll find its way back. And wanting is not something that you're earning. It's something that you're learning how to care for. All right. Now, if these conversations are supporting you, I share deeper monthly reflections and integrations with my Patreon community. So tomorrow morning, after this episode this evening, I'll be posting a January after show insight that weaves together everything we've explored about desire. So if you want to join Patreon, that's right here, patreon.com/𝘈EricaRivera. And if you want personalized support around desire, it doesn't even have to be desire, intimacy, or relationship dynamics, I do offer one-on-one consults. And there's nothing to fix. Sometimes it's about learning how your desire actually works. All right. And for that, you can email me or find me on social media, send me a message. And I also want to mention, because I don't mention it as often, that if you have a story, a body of work, a lived or personal, professional connection to sexual health, intimacy, relationships, and you think it would add value to this conversation, you can email me to request a guest application to be on Sexpertease. So we're definitely intentional. I'm very intentional about guests so that we can keep these conversations thoughtful, ethical, and meaningful. And I'd love to have some of you on for February, which is Love Month. So, wanting doesn't disappear, it responds. Please stay curious, stay compassionate with your desire, and stay safe. I will see you next week.